Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Archint. Now you know Dev Talks. We do something different. हम लोग हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ अलग करने की सोचते हैं and कैसे किस जगह से किस angle से can we look at the security of India, and that's something it's important for us. Today, as a matter of fact, announced it a couple of days back, has India found a new buffer state in Pakistan? Is the Pakistani army found a new job, which is to protect India? Now, I don't know if they realize it, and I don't know if we realize it. This is just a thought I had, and I've been thinking about it for a little bit. And I have with me Lieutenant General Dushyant Singh, who's going to help us dig it a bit deeper to understand if my theory holds any water. Sir, first of all, good evening. Thank you so much for indulging me, sir. I don't know if I'm being a bit too wild or am I spot on target. I don't know, but thank you so much for joining me today.
You see, first of all, thanks here, Adi. Good to be back again. And since I'm coming after a long time, maybe after a gap of 2 weeks or so, on your channel, I would also like to express my heartfelt condolences to the people who lost their life in the Balasore incident. That's been a very big tragedy as far as India is concerned, and we need to. And I suspect there is a sabotage angle to it. Let's see what the inquiry comes up with, but definitely against the politicization of that incident. So, with that, what you are saying is yes. Uh, I actually thought about this issue about 3 years back. I was listening to a program. I think it was on Times Now or some channel, maybe 4 years back, if I'm not wrong. I was still in service and I was a lieutenant general listening to a few retired veteran generals of the Pakistan army.
Acha.
And
Pakistan
one
Army,
of them,
acha.
yeah, one of them came up with this, there was a discussion on the terror attacks which were taking place during that period. Number of them because of the elections and other things. I think it was on 2014 or so. So Modi government had still not come into power, right? So one of them said, India should be thankful that we are doing their dirty job, and that hit me a little. And then I realized, yeah, this guy is right here. And thereafter, I have got this thought in my mind, and I continue to mull over it. I really don't like to push it forward too much, lest these guys get to know about it. So then they stop, and then they stop doing what they are doing. So that was one of the reasons why I had, and still I was serving. So I didn't want my job to become very difficult. I wanted to let it go as it was going or as it was flowing up. But definitely, you are right that there is a certain amount of bufferness with Pakistan being there between us and the most troubled region of the world since 2000 BC. Now, I'm making the statement very clear. Since 2500 BC, it is the most troubled region of the world. And there has been actually a research done by an Australian scholar way back in 1975. I had his references somewhere in my thesis, but my thesis is quite old now. I was a colonel when I wrote that thesis, wherein he has documented history of reflecting on the region from Myanmar to Afghanistan or Persia to be very precise, being a belt which is very volatile and always in fight with each other. You look at it today also, you'll find a similar kind of a event happening around in this belt. It may have only just got focused internally. Earlier, there were kings in these belts. Now you have local satraps in these belts. You have somebody in West Bengal, you have somebody in West Bihar, you have somebody in Odisha, Kalinga, so forth. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, I hope we are not returning back to the lord satraps, which were lords and satraps, which were there way back in BC. Hopefully not, but let's see. We'll discuss this issue more in detail as we go along.
I mean, 2,500 years is a long time to go back, but one thing is for certain. So, for the past about 3 to 400 years, this place especially west of the Indus, has been a very volatile region. Um,
Yeah,
the
I,
Islamic
I, I,
wars.
I feel when we go through the slides which I have prepared for this, we will
Absolutely.
be able to yeah. So my opening statement, this more or less everybody knows that it has been the graveyard of British Empire, USSR, now Russia, and subsequently US, and people are looking at which is the next empire which will get buried in the sands of mountains of Hindu Kush mountains of Afghanistan. And to my mind, it will be Pakistan which will get buried very soon in this quagmire of the land which is so unstable, so volatile. With that, if we can move to the next one, yeah. So if you look at this particular map, Northwest India comprised a number of small republics in 500 BC. Gandhar, Kamboj, Madra, I mean, to name a few. The emergence of the Mauryan Empire subsequently gave some stability to this region. I could compare Mauryan Empire to the current Indian influence or the British Raj influence. Let's take the equal of all the three. Bimsara was the guy who was ruling, he was the son of Chandragupta Maurya. Persians invaded and ruled for 2 centuries thereafter. I'm talking of the history of Darius and Xerxes. Xerxes was the person who started letting the reign of Persian Empire go down. And after Xerxes came Alexander the Great from Greece. So the first truly speaking invaders of this region were the Persians, subsequently followed by the Greeks. So you will find a tremendous influence of the Persian culture in this region. Not so much of Greeks, but more of the Persian influence is there in the entire northwestern belt of India, including portions of North India, right? So you will find if you go do a detailed study, you will find all these things happening. Okay, we go to the next one.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is the map which shows the Alexander's invasion route, which came. If you can see, it came across. First time the Persians stopped at the Indus, right? But Alexander went beyond the Indus, after capturing Porus. Although he restored Porus's kingdom, but the fact is that he was the first one to cross the Indus. Now start looking at the way people in the West have been looking at India as a region, and this is I'm talking about BC period. So it was always a easy fruit to come and take and go back. Invasions mostly took place from the west to the east, although there were few incursions by Indian kings which took place the other way around. You can talk of Marathas, Chandragupta Maurya. So there were guys who started from Magad and went towards that direction, but there were very few in numbers. Okay, if you go to a conclusion of this kind of a history, you can say that North India remained the most disunited region of India in history. Doesn't that give you a kind of an indication where lies our major problem? Of course, we have our own series of other issues, but those are, I mean, very minuscule when you compare to the problems of this region. Can we go to the next one? Okay, after the Alexander's invasion, there were minor kingdoms, republics, which were existing in this area, like we have discussed earlier. The the Islamic or they call it as the caliphate invasions. The caliphate invasions started from after the Islam was established in the West Asian region, and a number of them took place. Before that, Mongols had come, but Mongols just went back after the fringes of the northwestern region. But the caliphate guys came across India, They extended their influence beyond Alexander and came and sat by 1200 AD on the Delhi Sultanate. So you seeing how we were being invaded first pre-Indus, I mean before Indus, then across Indus, then around the Punjab, and finally they came right up to the Delhi Sultanate. But Ghaznavis started falling apart with the rise of the Mughal Empire, which then under Babur and thereafter Humayun and others came and established their influence beyond the Delhi Sultanate. Then they started looking at entire South India, East India, and North India, of course, was always there with them, including Kashmir, etc. Can you go to the next one to see how the Mughal Empire looks like? Sorry, this was a picture of Mauryan Empire. Why I have kept it is that Mauryan Empire got replaced in a similar manner by the Mughal Empire. Now go to the Mughal Empire. Just to tell you the map. Oh, I think I missed the map. But the Mughal Empire looked similar to the Mauryan Empire. Go back. Just go back. Yeah. The Mughal Empire started looking similar at its peak, what Mauryan Empire was. The history took a 360-degree turn. We had an empire in India which was kind of trans India or pan India pan India rule which was taking place. You had those small rulers in between here and there, some agreements with Rajput kingdoms, etc. They were existing, but overall they were all paying lagans, chalan, whatever taxes, etc. were there. They were being paid to the Mauryan Empire. Mughal Empire. So Mauryans and the Mughals, you can say, are the two extremes of our country's experience, which is something you must realize. So once the Mughals reached a kind of a three-fourth rule over India, came the British Raj. Go back. That I will cover after. Go to the next one. Sorry, go to the next one. Yeah. So this period, I can say, the period up to the Mughal Empire, a snapshot of over 2,500 years of AFPAC history, is that you had Persian Empire, they used to call it as Achaemenid, going into the graves. Then you had the Gandhas, Kamboj dynasties going into the graves. Then you have Alexander's in Arcosia, which is modern day Kandahar, going into the graves. Kushan Empire went into the graves. White Huns, which are also known as the Rajputs later on, they also lost their influence. Earlier, at the time of Alexander, you also had the people who were left behind. They started that Greco-Bactrian kingdoms on the banks of Amodarya. They also were, invaded by the caliphate, and they finally faded away. Indo-Greek kingdoms also, there were small little kingdoms like this. They also went, but this was all happening in that region of Indus and Persia or Iran, what modern day Iran. All this gather is happening in that region, and there was nothing to prevent India from being periodically looted and exploited, because whenever they ran short of their resources, they would come to India, pick up the goodies, and go back. That became India became a cow which was being exploited by everyone in this particular region. What we are referring to slowly and slowly is that India did not have a buffer. India did not have a buffer, and we must thank the British inadvertently, thinking that the whole thing is going to be in their interest. They gave us a buffer,
They
and
created a
possibly,
buffer for themselves.
yeah, they created a buffer for themselves. But I'll tell you how. That's also a different story. So the only empire, like I said, which retained some amount of semblance of control over this area were the Mauryans, Mughals, and the British. And they also did not use too much of force. Let me tell you, they used more of money, more of letting these guys rule, but allowing them to use the main highways. Repeat, only allowing them to use the trade routes. दे वर नॉट रियली कंसर्न कि आप पहाड़ों में क्या कर रहे हो, नीचे क्या कर रहे हो, वो तुम रास्ता छोड़ दो हमारे ट्रेड के लिए अक्रॉस द द हिंद कुश और अक्रॉस द सिल्क रूट, land silk route as we call it, or the Mughal route also. They only traded for this. They go to the next slide. Sorry, just go back. I wanted to highlight something. Nini, to that last one. Yeah. No, go back. Go back. Last one, the one with the red bullet. I want to highlight. In progress. Rest in peace, Pakistan. Right. So this is something which is my theory. Possibly I make, it's a scenario which is I'm trying to build, which may ultimately prove to be wrong or right, but it appears to be something like that, because ISKP and TTP both are doing what we would have done to Pakistan. And so, therefore, they are engaged squarely in battling the ISKP as well as TTP, which would have otherwise focused on India, Gazwai Hind. So, our enemy and enemy's enemy both are now locked into battle with each other. If they destroy each other, very good for us. If one destroys the other, then we have to wait for that to happen and then look at only one guy to deal with. So, isn't it a happy situation? There is a war game which is taking place between three players: India, Pakistan, and the terrorist groups which are operating in the northwest frontier and Baluchistan, BLA, etc. As of now, the two cats are fighting amongst themselves. India is the tiger waiting for one of the cats or both the cats to get demolished, and have a look see at what happens thereafter. So, your statement that probably Pakistan is batting for us is true. This was the logic which I wanted to create from 2500 BC to now as to why we are saying what we are saying. Now we go to the next one. Okay, because why I have used these slides is because you will only understand by these slides. Now look at the British Raj. The left hand map, or as you see the screen, the map on your left is the British Raj. Okay, now British Raj was something beyond the Mughal Empire and the Mauryan Empire, because they extended right up to Kanyakumari, and in the west they went right up to the Persian or the Iranian borders, and in the east they went right up to Myanmar. And so, and in between, these princely states were basically given by them or allowed by them to humor these so-called rajas of India, and they lived in their own make-believe world that they are kings, etc. But they were by no means kings, actually speaking. They were paying lagans, they were paying obedience to the British government, British Raj, especially after 1857, right? So when they were in the 40s, 1940s, they still believed that it is impossible to uptake them from India. But it was those mutinies, it was the Second World War dynamics which played on, that made them realize that, look, partition is now on our face. Yes, people say that all over the world, nationalists were winning against the British Raj and they were getting independence, but they were fighting. In our case, mind you, they were not fighting. We were doing a peaceful resolution of the entire independence movement, which to my mind only got effective once we started showing our teeth, whether it was through our through our Krantikaris who were fighting, or whether it was Subhash Chandra Bose, or whether it was the mutinies within the Navy, Air Force, and the Army. To my mind, these three factors actually made them go beyond that crest to say that yes, we are going to have to leave India now. So they revived the Muslim League concept, enticed Jinnah into saying that we will give you the Pakistan which you dream of, but you have to support us during the Second World War. And similarly, they used their different means to Gandhi also to say that, to Gandhi they didn't say that they're going to partition India. To Gandhi, probably the message was that we will give you independence if you support us during the Second World War. So the British got their way through as far as the Second World War was concerned, and the Indian Army, in full strength, supported the British offenses against the Japanese as well as the Germans and the
German,
Italians. Both Germans and the Italians, both. India was
North
somehow involved with
North
all these
Africa,
guys.
and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that the British, when they realized that they have to ultimately go for partition, they were becoming a declining power, and US in the Second World War had emerged as a undisputed superpower status. Between the two of them, they were looking at the interest of the West. What were the interest of the West? To keep a watch over China, eh, with a long term perspective, and to contain the USSR movement towards the Indian subcontinent.
Warm
So
waters
that
of
is
the Indian Ocean.
basically the Indian Ocean region. The port access they didn't want to give to the Russians, because that has been the Russians' major problem. Access to the seas has been
South.
a big, yeah, basically it's been a big concern for them. They have got very limited that where they are fighting now. That is one of the places from where they get out. That's why they're looking at the northern seas for a very long time now, to see if they can use that as a trade route for but that's not been very successful because of the nature and other terrain conditions. Let's see, nothing is impossible for a human mind. Anything can happen. But so therefore they came up with an idea that they need to have a country. Now listen to each of my words very, very carefully. They need to have a country which is weak. You're getting my point? They need to have a, and it is recorded, mind you. And who is saying this? A well-known Pakistani scholar who's Stockholm based, but he also teaches in Karachi University of Pakistan on a regular basis. He's a visiting professor there also. Imtiaz Ahmad, Istaq Ahmad, and
Mushtaq
his
Ahmed.
book. Huh?
Mushtaq Ahmed, sir.
Yeah,
Mushtaq Ahmed.
Mushtaq, or I think Istaq Ahmad. I've got his name. It's there in the next slide. And Talmiz, who's of Indian Foreign Service diplomat, now retired, and somewhere in the south only. He's the holding a chair in one of the think tanks there. Very well-known personality, India's leading diplomat. Right. He has analyzed this book, and in that he has said that this professor has said that it is Pakistan was created as a weak country by the British, so that it remains always in,
Sink or whatever. Yeah.
no, not in sync, dependent on
Huh.
the West. If it remains
Hmm.
dependent on the West, it will do the boarding of the West. And that is why, right from the beginning, you will find the orchestration of this weak country by the West has been in such a manner that they willy nilly come to the West for begging for the support,
So the
so that
rentier
they get,
state came.
so they get their access to this particular state. Had this state been with India, the pitfall would have been, they knew Gandhi, Nehru, and these guys had a very long term vision. They were more into sovereignty and other issues. They would not get access to anything which is part of India. Then how do they manipulate this area? Because Iran itself was not a very favorable country. It is subsequently that Shah was imposed there, and then Iran got into support of the West. So they were struck for place, and so they created this space, created two countries, and made it deliberately weak by giving them two parts, one in the West, second in the East, as though there were no Muslims in UP or Bihar, or I mean, There are majority of Muslims in UP and Bihar and Madhya Pradesh, this belt. But do you know what Jinnah wanted? He wanted a corridor from east to west, which the British said, "Thank you very much. We are not giving you this corridor." The Indians are not agreeing. Had that corridor come, we would have been in a situation like, Israel and Palestine, walls being made, through this corridor on either side, and there is a movement of Pakistanis taking place from here. This is all documented, I'm telling, in the words of the their own author. So what they did was, in the most contested region, they created a buffer country which would continue to keep fighting, remain weak, hence always dependent on Pakistan, plus serve as the eyes and ears of the West to look over the situation over India as well. India, China, and for that matter, Russia or USSR. Doesn't everything fit into this uh, theory which we are trying to propagate? And I tend to have always agreed to this. So that's why I agreed to do this program also. So you go to the next one now, and that is my last slide before I end my presentation.
Ishtiaq Ahmed.
Istiaq, Istiaq Ahmed, senior academic position in Stockholm University, and also teaches in Lahore. Sorry, not Karachi, Lahore. The author in his book on Jinnah, his successes, failures, and role in history says, and these are direct lifts from his book. Jinnah's difference with Gandhiji and Congress were not ideological, but personal and strategic. And this was exploited by the British. And they kept on exploiting it till the end. Whereas Gandhi and Nehru, and for that matter, other leaders of Maulana, etc., everybody was looking at India as a country, which was there during the Mauryan or the Mughal Empire. That kind of a dream they had. Okay, he that is he means Jinnah opposed Khilafat and wanted a negotiated solution to independence. Why? Because he knew in popularity he will lose because of the majority population being pro-Hindu. So whereas Gandhiji wanted a popular movement to take place before these guys to push out the British, uh, Jinnah wanted, let's have a negotiated solution. He would stand a better chance to get what he wanted because he realized that he can never be in a leadership position in a combined India or a joint India for obvious reasons. Okay, the author makes several references to rumors of a secret arrangement between Churchill and Jinnah, in which Churchill had pledged to reward Jinnah with a park for the support to the war effort. And I'm not saying this, no Indian scholar is saying this. This is being said by Istiaq Ahmed, who teaches in
Pakistanis.
Lahore, and also in Stockholm. So he also knows the Western narrative. Plus, definitely he has the Pakistani narrative, or at least eyes on the ground, right? Ears on the ground. He makes a very telling statement. By May 1947, the British had accepted the need for partition. It was noted that West Pakistan would serve Britain's strategic interest by providing Karachi port access to the southern seas, right? Should be denied to the. They are saying it is to be provided, but the ulterior motive was it should be denied to the Russians, okay, or the Chinese. Air bases and Muslim manpower when required. Okay, so look at the
War
futuristic.
manpower. War manpower.
Yes, yes.
Rentier
Look
state.
at they have used them. They use
Yeah.
them against the USSR invasion of Afghanistan. They use them again during the Taliban uprooting after 9/11. So they have been regularly using this manpower. What they have said. They also insisted that this Pakistan should be weak, much weaker than India, so that it would continue to depend on the West. So the buffer state gets created. Unfortunately, it gets a weaker uh, formation. It is divided into two parts. One part it has already lost. Doesn't this theory actually seems to be holding ground based on the events which have taken place in the past few decades? Therefore, and at the same time, the most troubled region of the world remains embroiled in a
Wow.
fight by somebody with whom we are not really concerned. They have agreed to ceasefire not for the sake of having very good relations with India. I'm sorry. They have agreed to a
Here's to that, sir.
ceasefire because they don't want a two front at this point.
Exactly.
Very clear. Very clear. And therefore, it is in our interest that
To
the
maintain it that way.
most troubled region of the world remains troubled, and these guys remain embroiled always. So with that, Adi, I have finished my uh, presentation as far as the today's topic is concerned. What we are trying to finally establish that Pakistan is serving a great purpose for the security of India. It is slowly reducing our two and a half front into some kind of a quarter front. Sorry, three-fourth of a front here and a uh, half front internally, which we have our own problems, and full front in front as far as China is concerned, which allows us or enables us to reorientate our forces, reorientate our troops, etc., to the bigger, larger, more nastier enemy which we have on the northern
Who's also worried
border.
about us?
Yeah. So I rest this presentation here, and I rest the
So, Uh,
case
sir,
case of the theory
the
here.
the thing is, you know, you've given us a highlight into history, and that's something which is very interesting to me, and which makes the case even stronger. Let's talk about the present day for about 5-10 minutes, and then we can start up with some questions of the audience. Guys,
Yeah.
do like this video. Again, I'm telling you this. This is a theory you will not have heard apart from dev talks. I can proudly say that that this kind of level of strategic thinking will not happen anywhere else. So it's critical that we actually do a very reasonable deep dive into such stuff and we understand where the game is. So my question to you is of the present day. Now, present day, you have chaos in Pakistan, which is well known,
Yeah.
and let's not get into the Imran Khan army chief factor and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
I mean, that
We all
that's a matter. That is a
yeah
matter which will pan out after
yeah
few weeks.
few
I
weeks.
think
So we'll get into that time and we'll see. There's
Imran will be
chaos in
buried.
Pakistan.
Yeah,
There's chaos in Pakistan, sir. There are
correct.
parts of Pakistan that are no more Pakistan, right?
Yeah,
Which is a concern. You've
that's
got the
right.
Indus, which is a natural barrier to between the cohorts of the West and us, which has pretty much been the case before as well. But in history, the wars were fought in Panipat because the people of that region literally just said, you know,
I told that's a good place. After
yeah.
the war, you will get a lot of booties.
Mm. And nobody, there was no lines of resistance and stuff like that. Today, we have the advantage of a line of resistance. So
And
be it that
I'll quote here an example when you said line of resistance. When Porus was attacked and defeated, Abhisara, who was the ruler in Takshila, he actually gave in to Alexander. He didn't fight only.
yeah,
He accompanied him to fight against the Porus. So there was
that's what I'm saying.
actually no line of resistance.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. In history, we've had just guys standing and saying, "Sir, right this way, sir."
आइए
That's
आइए
yes, sir.
इधर इधर
Huh.
से जाइए
So
इधर
today
से
we don't
जाइए
have that, sir, because today you have an army, and my theory is based on economics, based on modernity more than anything else. You have an army which needs to keep its empire together, right? And that's why I guess you also referred it to is it at the as the Pakistani empire.
Yeah.
So this is an army which has a $50 billion empire, which is not going to let it go. 7 lakh
Yeah.
people, $50 billion. Guys, do the math. That's a lot of money. So you have this issue, and they will resist any chance for it to kind of snap apart, because that makes them loses uh, 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 their relevance,
Yeah,
right? So that creates a very interesting situation for us. But this army, at the end of it, is not favorable to us as well, right?
definitely.
They keep doing all these sort of things. So the question I'm asking you, sir, would you rather fight this this war that we are fighting in Kashmir and Punjab and various other places, of subversion, of drugs, of this and that and the other, in the current scenario, or would you fight the fight that the Pakistani army is fighting today in the far west, if I may term it that way?
I would uh, simply put in the rating scale, the guys whom we are fighting in our part of the world are no match to the people who are there in the northwest. They are seasoned people from 2500 years who have been only doing this job. Do you know they don't crawl because they feel if they crawl, it is a show of covered eyes. So for them, death, life can easily be turned around by a very little motivation by people who can actually motivate them. So it's not the fight there is much more tougher. Not that I'm saying that we have not done it in the past. You all remember the Battle of Saragadi, etc., which we have fought there as an Indian army. But you remember what were the outcomes?
Yeah, I mean,
The outcomes were always against us. Look at the modern history. What has been the outcome for you? See, we may win a conventional war, we will subdue them, put all the explosives or TNT on their head and subdue them for about 1 month, 2 months, get a government there and get somebody to rule who is favorable to us. But how long will it last? The people's war is the war which we need to ultimately take into account. What happened in Sri Lanka? So this region is well known for fighting a very resolute people's war. Why are the Pakistanis embroiled since independence in Baluchistan? And now they are embroiled in Pashtunistan. And now Pashtuns of both the sides are almost in collaboration with each other. Isn't the problem for Pakistan increasing by the day? And let me tell you, I read a report in Afghanistan, one of the leading dailies, which says that people are now fed up of ruling. The Talibanis are fed up of ruling and
nine
going
to
to,
side jobs.
yes, so they want to get out. They
Yeah,
want to
yeah, I
get
read
out
that.
and they want to be in the field. So this pent up energy is ultimately, they are not cut out for administration. They are not cut out for such kind of
Mm.
sedentary jobs. They will all subsequently veer around to where is the action happening. Oh, TTP, good.
Chalo.
ETM, good. Against the Hazaras, good. Against the NRF, good. What happens to the governance? Goes for a 6.
And there's no, I mean, there's no resolute state as per se, or there's not a national identity that has been developed in that region. It's
Yeah.
more of an ethnic identity. So it's
Se-
oh, you killed
It's
my brother,
sectarian.
सारे खड़े हो जाएंगे वहां जाके, and they'll start
and
fighting.
and and it is sectarian. Today it is
Yeah.
all everything which is related to the Talibani culture. There are people who are part of the NRF, which we call it as National Resistance Front, guys who are under the Tajiks, Uzbeks, who are situated in the north. Those guys are having their own little empire, which is now settled in the neighboring countries of Afghanistan. So they are also not sitting quiet. They are also going to wait for their time to come and seek the opportunity whenever it arises. And I'm sure history repeats itself. And
There's
these are
also
the
another factor, sir. I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but there's also another factor that that region itself uh, is tameable, right? There's no question. I mean, it's happened in history and stuff like that. The just the reason, the sure reason that there is a city called Kandahar, which is based on the goddess Kandahari,
Hmm.
it's a clear factor that it's tameable. The question is about the cost, right? The question is about the cost, and my question is, when there is an army who is economically involved in holding a certain piece of land within a buffer that you have between that area and yourself, why should I pay the cost? Let them.
That's what I'm trying to say, that
Yep.
not everything is rational also. You must you must realize that not everything is rational, not everything is goes everything goes by logic. There are sometimes emotions that play, there are sometimes social pressures which play. So therefore, you will find, why do wars take place? If you rationally realize, do you think there is a need for a war? Why do strategic thinkers over history have always said the best strategy is to win without fighting?
Yep. Subdue.
And not one, two, everyone. Chanakya has said this, Sun Tzu has said this. War is always kept as the last resort. So there are other factors, extraneous factors, which come in when when wars take place. Rationality somewhere takes a beating for every war to start. So therefore, this region, by virtue of its history and the way people are living in that region, it is going on from ages. Like, if I go to my village, I can tell you, even now, I can know what happened about 300 years back, because it is all listed in the folklores. Ala Udul ka kahani. I don't even know who's Ala Udul, but his song is sung. So all these tribal cultures, which we are also part of a tribe only. A long time back, we were all called. I mean, every region had a satrap, and who was the boss of that region. We have evolved. We have gone beyond that stage, and so we are. But somewhere in the rural areas, this culture still lives through songs, through folklores, and when people listen to these things, they, over a period of time, develop a similar mentality. So my take is that Pashtuns will fight, Baluch will fight, the Tajiks will fight, and as far as Pakistan is concerned, which is east of Indus, will bear the brunt, which was earlier being borne by the either the Mughal Empire or the Mauryan Empire, or for that matter, the British Raj.
The
So
story
isn't
spoiled,
it?
I think,
So
with
isn't
the
it
Islamic
better?
invasions.
Yeah. I would say that the Islamic invasions made this area worse. I mean, it was already worse, but the Islamic invasions made it too much opportunistic. Earlier, people used to, whenever they came here, they established their sultanate, or rule, but they left behind a governor and went back. Okay, but once the Islamists came, they remained here. They settled here, and they brought that culture into this part of the world. So I would say west of Indus has become east of Indus has become similar to west of Indus in terms of behavior pattern. So I only hope that Indus doesn't become a dividing line between the Pakistan ruled by its army and rest of the people of Pakistan who are on the other side of Indus. Very wild shot, but rivers seem to divide. Incidentally, when you talk of economics, Indus Basin has lost its productivity. Do you know that? Once upon a time, the largest granary of the world is today struggling for food security.
Food security.
So obviously, the blames will go on the other side. The blames will go on the Chinese. Why have they made so many dams on the top, or they are making so many dams on the top? Why are land being reclaimed along the Indus Basin, which is resulting in arid climate, and therefore lack of food production? So these issues at the local level will finally grow up into a big fight between the people of East and the West. You've seen what the Taliban has said, that we will extend the war beyond the Indus to Islamabad, and they showed it also. They showed it also in few incidents which took place immediately in after their statements in Islamabad and Rawalpindi, including Lahore also. So
Yeah,
my take is that the two sides are going to continue to go for war. Remember, one more interesting factor which I would like to share here with our viewers is that when the partition took place, deliberately, deliberately, the British over empowered Pakistan army. You see, as per distribution, proper
yeah, the
distribution pattern
population and yeah.
in India and Pakistan, it should have been 18% and 72%. Actually, it happened 33% and 67%. So therefore, they acquired a lot of muscle power, which could easily then prevail over the local politicians who were in any case of feudal background, princely states, etc. And they thought they really didn't have much of a security as their major botheration. They thought अभी राज मिल गया है, अब राज मिल गया है तो पाकिस्तानियों के साथ, आर्मी के साथ मिल करके राज करते हैं. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. That was the kind of thing. Least realizing, you remember the first case when it happened? Ayub Khan was appointed as the CMLA and he kicked out Iskandar Mirza 13 days after this agreement had taken place. So that was the start point of the Pakistan's downfall. And I feel since the Pakistan army has the resources, like you said, 50 billion and Fauji Foundation. We don't have to go. We have discussed all those in threadbare in our previous programs. People can go and listen to them exactly what I have or other speakers of yours have also said about it. They are not going to leave it so easily. So they are actually willy nilly batting for us, and let them bat for us. Yeah. Why should we bother too much about it? Okay. Yeah. So we can take few questions, and I
Yes, sir.
think
Let's do that. Let's do that. Guys, before I start with the questions, like the video, subscribe. As I said, spread the word. Very critical. This is a very interesting analysis. Uh, we need to look at things from very different angles to understand a certain problem. It's not always the straight angle that can give you answers. You have to look at it from all different angles. So that's what we're trying to do. You can contribute to the Dev Talks efforts to the QR code up there, become a member, or send us a super sticker or super chat. Let's get into some questions. One of the biggest things, and okay, let's see, sir. Afghanistan had Persian influence, not Punjab, before Islamic invaders. Before Islamic invaders, Punjab was 100% Hindu since antiquity. Destruction done post 1192, then 1946 and 1996, 1966. Absolutely.
1966.
That is absolutely true. The factor,
This is true fact. Well, like I
yeah,
said, the destruction quantum and intensity and ferocity increased with the caliphate incursions which started off. Before that, these guys used to come capture a, for example, Alexander, he just wanted power. Okay, in the process, his army may have looted and done whatever they had to do, because that used to be the norm in those days. People
yeah,
went into war that, if we get victory, we will get women, we'll get
gold.
stuff, etc. But the intention was, Alexander's intention was that he must rule the world, and in his perception, the world was the eastern edge of India.
That was the
So
end
he
of it.
thought that was the end of the world. So everything is dependent on the perception of that particular era. I mean, imagine once Alexander did this, what would have happened in this region? That, oh, Greeks are now the rulers. I mean, nobody knew about America. So the whole region was from Europe to India. This was the perception of world in that era. So things change also. It's not that things are same, but the thread is there. That essence is there, as to come to a place which is going to give you the goodies. British also came for what? Exactly in the same manner. They used the Mahan theory of using the seaways. That's the only difference between the invasions of land route and the invasion of the sea route. Possibly, we need to be careful of our sea routes as well.
The 11th century, many Indian empires considered Indus as the natural border from Indus to Afghanistan area as a buffer zone. Now history is repeating itself in modified form. Your view, sir?
I fully agree. The idea of Hindustan or India, Bharat, was the Himalayas, Indus, and in the south the peninsula. So this was the broad idea as far as the idea of Bharat, if you want to say so. But we used to do incursions beyond Indus. The Mauryans did it. The Gandhars, Kamboj,
Yeah.
Sakas. So we also had
Since
incursions
history,
on the
sir.
other side.
Yeah. I mean, even the
Yeah.
Mahabharata. If you see the Mahabharata, it was fought
Yeah,
from Kashgar downwards.
absolutely. So we used to do incursions. There is no doubt about it. But Indus was considered as a defensible line. That was definitely a
Nine no
big thing.
defense. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if
We used
we had Indus with us, hypothetically, if we had Indus with us, what would we have been doing? Let me now recount. Let me put the entire damn thing into perspective. A, the US would be interested in interfering with you much more than what it is doing now. The
China.
Russians would have been interfering with you. The Chinese from the north would have been interfering with you. What are they doing? Chinese, they are coming from the north to
Yep.
have access to the Indian Ocean. Why are they doing this? Because they feel Pakistan is weak, a country which can be exploited. Thanks to the theory which Istiaq Ahmed, so called the Pakistani himself, has propagated, all these problems would have been inherited by you. So I am saying from posterity, Pakistan is batting for you thanks to a brilliant move by Winston Churchill. Whatever be his motivations to spite back at India, because he didn't like the
Yeah, yeah.
state
Well
of India.
known.
That is very well known to everyone. But the fact is, God is great. Somewhere, somebody is fighting your battle, and I think we should be happy about it. All
Absolutely.
these problems would have been inherited by you, and you would have been doing it. Mind you, you would have had no choice.
Treating Pakistan as a this is a I would say the mainstream perspective. Treating Pakistan as a buffer zone would also help them regain their lost potency of harming India. India should focus on disintegrating Pakistan in four parts. There will be an effective solution for the issue. May I just say something before you jump into this, sir? Pakistan, till its last drop of blood, will still keep doing what it does to India. So let me just put that out. I mean,
Okay, so I
I
was
don't know
I
if
was
you'll agree
about
with
to
me.
I was about to tell you that Pakistan's anti-India posturing will never end, and it goes back into the creation of Pakistan.
Even if you break it up, that one part where
The-
all these crazies are there, they'll be against you.
in the same book which I am referring to, see, this issue has been written by many people. Why I am referring to this book now is that this fellow is still living and current, and he's in Pakistan. He has said that the very idea of having a nation based on Muslim consideration was faulty. He disregarded culture, he disregarded region. So Jinnah was acting totally personal and strategic interest of his own. Strategic interest and personal interest combined into the form of he being the president of a country or father of a nation, whatever you may want to call it, Qaide Azam. In fact, he ends his book by saying it would be right to say he was not Qaide Azam, he was Katile Azam. So, partner, India would be hated by Pakistanis till the end. Your theory of dividing them into four parts is actually working. When they are fighting, Pakistani army is fighting Baluchis on one hand and the Talibanis on the other hand. Three-part variation is already there. As far as the Baluch is concerned, sorry, Sindh is concerned, as of now, Sindh doesn't have the potency of a leader to actually take forward their, it was all finished during the Vajpayee time when the NQM leaders and all were targeted. They have all shifted, relocated to England and other countries, Britain and other countries in the West. But three-part partition, they're working at it. Yeah, very happy, very happy. Now we don't have to spell everything in writing as to what you can do to make them engaged. Like I said, for any country which has an adversary on its flanks, it is better to have that country be unstable, but be unstable a little away from your borders. Isn't this a good sign that the instability is on the western front of Pakistan? Otherwise, the spillovers will take place in your country, friend, and you will be dealing with it. Why do you think that in Kashmir the level of violence has come down? Because there was no internal unrest in any case after the first 4 years of insurgency. Kashmir problem. Everything was actually settled. It is the induction of the foreign terrorists which has led to Kashmir problem remaining alive. So, if the foreign terrorists are reduced in numbers, we must thank them. And how their numbers are being increased, we don't have to go on to debate with this, and we don't have to go public on that, right?
Yeah.
If, I'm
Challe
sure
do.
agencies, I'm sure agencies which are there, they must be doing their job. They are meant to do a particular job. They are paid for that. Why should we talk about it?
Absolutely. Just a statement. Jack Sparrow says Pakistanis watching this must feel disappointed that they don't have freedom for their fate. Dude, that's a heavy statement, man. I must say, but yeah, that's quite true.
Uh, okay. I think every people have the freedom of their fate. They have to come out on the streets and fight for it.
Yeah,
The Chinese fought for it in a different manner. So many other countries have fought for it in a different manner. Why should you get cowed down by few arrests and few court martials?
that tells
People
you.
were.
See, that's what I'm saying, sir. That the area around there, although they are not fighters, they are messers. They like to mess things.
Yeah.
They don't like to fight because the minute you stand up and start fighting with them, they run. And
I'm
when
talking.
they saw
This
these,
may be this may be true for the people east of Indus.
yeah, sir, exactly how all these invaders have been able to come into India, and why did they only come from the west?
If I'm telling you, if tomorrow the this is, don't take it that I'm making a statement or a suggestion like this. The Russians come to Pakistan and say we want to go into India. The Pakistanis would gladly become the Abhisar of Takshila and say, hey,
Ji sir.
go there.
Yeah, 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 I get your point. I get your point. It may
So
be whoever it is. The Chinese are
uh,
using them today.
anyone for that matter.
Exactly
Why
the
do we
same
keep
thing.
why do we keep saying that there is a collusivity? Why do we say that? It is because of this mentality of this particular region.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
as of now, our approach should be at the diplomatic level, keep this area isolated from the big powers that be, and let these elements which are inside Pakistan continue to remain embroiled in their
Settle
game.
themselves.
And if you look at it, Jaishankar is doing exactly this. He's keeping these big powers at bay with very fine diplomacy, and Pakistan is withering on its own tree.
Indeed, Ketan says excellent theory. So we can say the partition was in favor of India, in terms of which has created a strategic buffer. Today, you can say that. I would,
Okay, okay, okay,
sorry,
okay.
but
It is always better to have a buffer state.
yeah,
If India was partitioned in a manner that Afghanistan had a port, or there was some portion of port in that part of the world, we would have had Afghanistan as our buffer. So it's the way India would have been formed that would have been more important. The way the boundaries would have been demarcated. Like for today, on the Eastern Front, the British Okay, gave us the buffers in form of Tibet, Bhutan, Nepal. What were these? Myanmar. What were these? They were earlier. Myanmar was part of British India. We don't have it now. Bangladesh has been automatically created. The choice was with us whether to go in and occupy or not occupy, and I think we did a good thing because you see, more the people populations become very difficult for you to manage them, both in terms of economy and also in terms of integration, emotional integration.
And
I
those
think the
guys
emotion,
were the ones who wanted the separate area. It was
yeah.
basically the guys in Bengal, and
So they
so
have taken their pick. They are doing what they are doing, and I think they're doing a good job of it. Let them handle. So buffer states have always been an advantage to any country. I'm saying the way Pakistan got created, it is now acting as a buffer for us, so which is good also. I see you have to look at a everything has two sides to it. One side will say that we lost so much of territory.
yeah, I
Who
mean,
lost so
there's
who lost the territory? Tell me who lost the territory? Who's the we? What is the we?
Bharatvarsh, you know.
How do you define Bharatvarsh? There are different views on this also.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you define ourselves?
Oh, see, there's that factor which is always there, sir. But you know, the we have to live in the reality. You have to take
Yeah.
lessons from history, and you know, this is something that I've kind of been talking about with very many people, that we had a certain history. There's no denying of that fact. The Bharatvash, the Akhand Bharat, which is spoken about, the Indian influence. And I asked this question the other night about why the Chinese hate our civilization, is because how many Chinese temples do you have in the world? The answer is simple: zero. I mean, they're
So,
Buddhist shrines, and
but
Buddhism went from India. Hinduism
see,
went from India, all over the place.
and the other fact is the the Chinese of today are 1949 onward believing in an ideology which is atheist.
And they call all of them Han, which is not true.
Correct. They are
So
atheist
it's
basically.
yeah, yeah. So, Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire tamed the Pashtuns. This is wrong assumption that Pashtuns were never defeated. Okay, can never be defeated. Can be defeated. So so why were they conquered and converted by Ghaznavi?
Okay, Pashtuns can never be defeated is something which is told in the long term. Pashtuns can be defeated. Anybody can be defeated. If you come with a hammer on a population which is not equipped to sustain the hammer, it will first get crushed. But the people who remain or who survive this hammer, then they start developing their own strategy and tactics of eating the handle of the hammer so that you can't lift the hammer. Because hammer is made of some different sorry, the handle is made of, in those days of course definitely was made of wood. So if the if the handle is cut, the hammer becomes an inert hammer, which can be then pushed around, lifted around, and put in a corner. Exactly what they have done. So when we went into, or whenever we have gone into a battle conventionally, we went into battle in Bangladesh. We won it in 15 days. But if we had to stay there, the Mukti Bahini would have turned around its head and would have started doing things to us. So people's war is very difficult to fight. People's war, why do people's war remain, and why does people's war remain for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years? Since how long have we been fighting the people's war in northeast or Kashmir, or for that matter in Naxalite areas?
Takes
There are
time.
ebbs and there are ebbs and flows. It comes down, it'll again pick up, it'll come down again, it'll pick up in a different format, but the people will mutate amongst themselves, and
But these
unless
regions are rather as well integrated. I mean, we're also talking about regions which are not integrated and not have anything in common.
yeah, yeah.
You had the Americans
And
trying to give billions and billions in Iraq and this and that. It all shot in their face. You know,
बिल्कुल.
it's this thing.
See,
I have a
the fault lines are very deep,
yeah
and if the fault lines are deep, it takes hundreds of years to make this fault line failure. What do you think is happening in America? Keep
yeah
talking about US. Every day there is some attack or the other which is happening,
mass shooting.
either in malls or shootings. 100 people. I mean, people in double digits are being killed here.
They've had
Why people,
two shootings a day
kids?
in the last year, sir. Two
Yeah.
mass shootings a day.
Yeah. And these are ones which are being reported. There are many which are not coming to you and me because of the level, they are very small, etc., etc. Artificial integrations are always and they are 200 3 to almost 250 years old now in terms of
Yeah.
democracy. We are just about 75 years old in terms of democracy. We will take a long time. We will integrate. I think we should look at the long term perspective. That's the way I look at it. These hiccups will be there in any country, any part of the world.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I asked this. This is a very funny thing that everybody says you cannot become a superpower without having a peaceful neighborhood. Really? Tell me one superpower that has a peaceful neighborhood.
In fact, we had our theory is, or my theory is, that the Chinese will never become a superpower because they don't have the will to use the power.
Ah,
Let's analyze them. They have only 62 to their credit against a army which was ill prepared, ill equipped, very low in numbers as compared to the Chinese, not empowered to fight. Its leadership wrangling amongst themselves. As why I'm talking of even the army leadership. Somebody being made the corps commander, etc., from an arm which was totally different.
yeah,
He
that
was
whole
from the
story we know.
70s. So we don't want to repeat all those things. What I'm saying is, other than that, tell me one incident where they have done some bloody great thing. Nothing. We beat them in 67. We beat them in all skirmishes, border skirmishes which have taken place. The Vietnamese gave them a bloody nose. They have zilch, zero operational experience. Total casualties in their armies since the 1962 war or 67 war have been just 16 or 17. I'm talking of the battle casualty. I'm not talking of physical casualty. Battle casualties.
After the Usuri incident.
Including the Galwan, I'm counting four of them which they accepted. So an army which is doesn't have that will to use military power really can't claim itself to become the superpower. वो सोने की चिड़िया हो जाएगी जिसको कि आकर के लोग खाते जाएंगे. What happened to it? I mean, India, under when we went into a slumber, Chanakya had said, always expand, keep expanding, remain dynamic, and we settled for Indus as our battle line. And that becomes the we have to remain active. We have to ensure that our, I'm not saying we become like the olden times, but at least we must have the willpower to ensure that our national interests are met. So if our national interests are that we must secure our boundaries, and if for that if you have to use offensive, do it by all means. Have the will to do it. You will be considered, or you will be respected better than the other guy, which India has displayed its intentions very clearly, that we have been using our military much more than the others. We went into Maldives, we went into Sri Lanka. We have. Let me. I'm just recounting the kind of actions which we have done. We have done far more than the Chinese. Why should we be afraid of? We have been very active militarily. We have fought Kargil, we have fought 65, we have fought 71. We have liberated Bangladesh. What is to the credit of Chinese? Nothing.
Let's take this one. This is an interesting question, sir. Last two. Relying on the
Yeah.
theory of seeing Pakistan as a buffer, now do we still have the need for Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, since having it will increase our borders with China as well as put us to Afghanistan, a famously unstable regime?
See, this is a question which hypothetically, if I have to answer it, I would say yes. But uh, China, when you're dealing with China, technically we have a buffer with China. Moment we have POJK and Gilgit Baltistan, Xinjiang is actually was a buffer. Xinjiang was not China. Xinjiang was
Stalin.
not China. Tibet was not China. These were places which were not China. So we will create the buffer. Moment POJK and Gilgit goes to us, what will the people of Xinjiang do? They will say, "Oh yes, yeah, it is doable. We can have, and you have assets and resources to create problems in Xinjiang or Tibet." Why do you think the Chinese are always hesitant to do what they have to do?
Their biggest cry is about Tibet. They always keep crying about it. So
The advantage of having POJK with you is tremendous. You are in the hills, you are in the mountains, you are in the Himalayas, and from there you can dominate whatever remains of Pakistan, and whatever the Chinese will are going to get along with you. It's not easy to fight wars in mountains, let me tell you. So we have a buffer. We have a buffer in terms of the Himalayas. We will be able to take care of it. And more the Chinese get extended, the better it is for. If we are getting extended, they are also getting extended.
yeah,
And where is their problem? They have got four front, five front. The people are talking of almost eight fronts for China now. And I think the way people are doing it, their fronts will only keep on increasing.
today Mongolia is also
Japan,
getting pissed off with China.
I'm
So
telling you, Japan, no, which are active. Japan, Taiwan, Philippines has become totally anti-China. Australia is already annoyed, deeply annoyed with their coal deals getting off. Then Vietnam. Then you have India, of course, is always there. तो सिक्स फ्रंट की तो बात अभी भी कर रहे हैं लोग. फ्रंट ही फ्रंट है उनके पास. So let's not get too overtly worried about China, and they have their own economic front which is now undergoing a deep recession. I would say recession not in terms of actual recession, the economic recession, in terms of downward trend. Their economy is just going down and down unless they do something about it. They are running short of food. Their northern regions are arid. They don't have water there. The water is 184 cubic meter per square. I've just done a show on that with Jan Chaturvedi, and the water scarcity figure are 500 plus. Water scarcity. That means countries which have water scarcity. So they are 184 in the northern region, which is their industrial hub, which is their agricultural hub. They have their own problem. They are having so many internal fronts themselves. जब जब दुश्मन कमजोर है ना, जब दुश्मन कमजोर है तब उसके ऊपर हमला करो. अदरवाइज जब वो स्ट्रांग है तो चुपचाप बैठे रहो. सो वेट फॉर योर अपॉर्चुनिटीज, then don't bother for buffer. When you are strong, don't bother for buffer. And if you
last
know a region, which is very difficult to handle, let somebody else handle it. Yeah.
renter state. Last one, sir. It is a good point that war against people, uh, rent a state. That's not bad, I must say, even if I say it myself.
Yeah.
It's a good point that war against the people is hard to fight in the long term. So, can we believe Chinese tactics are more effective and successful in the way they occupy Tibet and keep hold? I don't think
See,
so.
see, Tibet was a Buddhist country, and the answer lies there. That's it. I don't have to.
Apart from that, sir, they are the sanctity of the factor that they are so nervous about Tibet. You meet the Buddhists and they fly into a tizzy. That means there is some problems that they're facing inside.
No, no, I agree that they are nervous about Tibet and Xinjiang, and that is why they have their continuous watch over these two areas. They have their military, which is deployed essentially to control the people of India, people of these two regions.
Tibet
But
and Xinjiang.
but but the Tibetans, over a period of time, uh, have always remained totally peace orientation. You know, their
They
orientation
didn't,
has always
they
been
don't fight. Yeah.
heavily peace oriented. They have fought in Sri Lanka, etc. But overall, their orientation is a peaceful resolution to everything. That is why Dalai Lama, the way Dalai Lama approaches, Dalai Lama has also never called for people to fight against. See, if their leader is not calling them to fight, it's very difficult for somebody else to instigate them. Their leader is with us, and he talks of negotiations, he talks of solutions which are peaceful in nature. So I think the answer lies somewhere there.
I must say, sir, this was an interesting show, a twist to a whole different game, and that's what it is all about for us to understand what's happening around us. Afghanistan and the cohorts that sit there. You can, and in USA you say that three-letter agencies. I'd rather say that Afghanistan has three-letter groups that are threatening, three or four-letter groups, which are ISIS, ISKP, this, that, TTP. And today, latest news, by the way, guys, has come out that TTP has joined hands with another three, four more groups. So they all becoming
Yeah,
stronger and they've issued a threat and this and that. So yeah,
yeah. So there are these groups which are
yeah,
floating around.
yeah.
Actually, all of them are affiliates of TTP.
And who's an affiliate of Taliban? So the story is right there.
Yeah,
The deal that I'm trying to say is that if there is a situation currently, the way the Pakistanis are currently, and the army is deployed there with its economic assets and needs that kind of assurance, uh, but with literally its own blood to hold its assets, let them do it because that keeps us safer and keeps us away from all this kachra that stand in that particular region. Sir, thanks so much. You've brought out a historical perspective, which is always interesting because history always gives us that legitimacy and basis to actually put across an argument. Thank you so much for that, and I hope to catch up with you for another. I believe by the time the next time we catch up in the next week or 10 days, something should happen between the army and Imran Khan, and we should have another little
no, no,
interesting
no.
deep dive.
We can talk of an interesting thing which I have been developing
Sir,
on China, but
ah,
that
sure,
is
sir,
still
absolutely,
some
we
time
could,
to there is still some time to go about it. So we
sir.
can talk about it. I'll let you know.
Oh,
Thank you very much, sir,
absolutely,
and let's call it a night.
absolutely a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you so much,
Good
and Jai Hind.
night to everyone. Yeah, Jai Hind.